Good morning, all. Hey, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy to be here this morning with you. My name is Christy Varner, and I am a virtual CFO and small business strategist. And today, what I want to share with you is a question that I get asked all the time and where I think there's a lot of confusion. And so I want to clear this up for you. So I want to talk today about the difference between a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CPA, and a CFO. And by the end of this, you'll not only understand the differences, but also what your expectations are as far as what that type of service would entail, and get a good idea of what type of service you would need for your own business. So I'm so happy to have you join. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for those of you that are joining via YouTube on our channel. Would love for you to hit subscribe. And for those of you on Small Business Finance Simplified, our private Facebook group, which is free to join. So if you are not part of it and you would like to be, we would love for you to join us. We do free tips and trainings and strategy and all sorts of stuff in there. So anyway, it's a fun new group. But anyway, hey, Vicki, thank you for the happy birthday. This is a good birthday to spend with you guys. Anyway, so let me explain to you a little bit about these differences. So a bookkeeper, we're going to sort of start at the bottom of the realm and go up. And because I always explain things, using an analogy, I want to talk first about food. Okay, food. Who doesn't want to talk about that? So let's just talk about a restaurant real quick, and I'm going to run through the jobs the best that I can kind of understand it in a way that I think that will help. So first, you have your food prep person. Okay, your food prep person is going to, gather the ingredients that you need for the meal, and make sure they've got all the ingredients that are needed, and then perhaps chop up the vegetables and all that stuff. Okay, so it's really important that the prep person do that correctly, because if the vegetables are all chopped to different sizes, then it will affect the outcome, right? Or if they gathered, milk instead of cream, it changes the outcome. Okay, so that is the first job that I thought of. The second job is the sous chef. So that's the person that actually cooks the food. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that I follow along. So then there's the sous chef, and that's the person that actually cooks the food, makes the meal. Okay, and then you would have say a chef, and the chef is going to be the one that adds the garnishments, looks at the overall thing, makes sure that this is what the owner wanted to have presented to the people who are dining there. And then, of course, you might have a sommelier, who is the wine expert, who would be sort of, on the side doing his special expertise. Okay, so now we're going to take that and apply that to accounting and finance. So now you've got all that in mind. So a bookkeeper is a little bit like the prep person. A bookkeeper, their primary job is to record transactions. So they are going to make sure that the money that went out of your business is recorded and also properly categorized. They're also going to make sure that all the money that came into your business is recorded and properly categorized. And you can see, just like the prep person, if they get that wrong, I'm forever saying garbage in, garbage out. So everything really hinges on having good bookkeeping. You must have good bookkeeping in order to have good financial statements, and then to have the advisory and analysis that we'll talk about later. So it's really sort of the bottom line of that. So bookkeeper, who needs a bookkeeper? Well, obviously everyone. Everyone needs bookkeeping help in order to run their business. Now, can you do it yourself? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can DIY your bookkeeping. So there's no level of education that is required. There's no certification that's required for a bookkeeper. So bookkeepers are your least expensive accounting role to outsource, because they're really just recording the transactions, and will produce usually monthly financial statements. But you can do this yourself. And in fact, I strongly encourage you that whether or not you do it yourself. It needs to be done because when you're a real business, you have to have financial statements. And like I said, you can't have those without recording the stuff. So the transactions. QuickBooks is the software that I most often recommend to small businesses and entrepreneurs. It is, it's perfectly usable for small businesses. Should you outsource your bookkeeping? If you don't have time to do the bookkeeping or it's not your thing, if your time is better spent on revenue generating activities, or it's just not something you can, get your arms around, hiring a bookkeeper on staff is a great plan for most of you. When you're first starting out, you don't need a full-time bookkeeper. So outsourcing to a bookkeeper is a great plan. Okay, the second one that I'm going to talk about is an accountant. So an accountant would be more like the sous chef in my example. And the accountant is going to, just like the sous chef cooks up what the prep person has put together, the accountant is going to take the transactions and really turn it into your financial statements. Like the bookkeeper might give you the financial statements, but the accountant will make adjusting entries and sort of look at it from a compliance standpoint. And compliance is, kind of the historical standpoint, and look at it and produce financials. Now, let me just say, so you may just have one person. So you will have an accountant oftentimes that will also do bookkeeping. So an accountant is just sort of the next step up, just like a sous chef. Like in some restaurants, like you just got the cook, right? Like he does the prep work, then he cooks the meal, and then she, does the whole thing. So that's a normal thing. An accountant, a lot of these terms, people can call themselves what they want. There's only one term that they can't, and that's a CPA. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But so you'll hear somebody say that they're an accountant. So when you're interviewing an accountant, you want to find out more about that. So because, as you know, accounting is the language of business, as Warren Buffett says. So it kind of has its weird rules, right, about how you record things. And so if you're not familiar with those, you might not get them right. But your financial statements need to be right, because that's what we use, like I said, as the very basis for making strategic decisions to get you from where you are to where you want to go. So it's really important that these be accurate and complete. So an accountant usually somebody would call themselves an accountant if they have more education. Oftentimes they'll have an accounting degree, and but they don't have to. But so that's a question to ask is, are you going to also do your bookkeeping? If you're interviewing an accountant, do you also do the bookkeeping, or will I need to have bookkeeping done and then you will also do just the accounting to kind of make sure that I'm complying with, getting my tax things done at the right time, and, complying with all the rules. So then the third that I want to talk about is a CPA. So a CPA is kind of none of those, if that makes sense. A CPA is actually a designation. It's a certification. You're certified. So CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. And what it means is that you are licensed to provide accounting services, licensed by the state, and it requires a certain level of education and experience, passing a test, and also continuing education. So I have to take 40 hours of continuing education every year to keep me up to date. And I have to take ethics classes so that I am sure that I understand how to best serve my clients. So a CPA, not every accountant is a CPA, but every CPA is an accountant. So that's just a higher level of designation that some accountants have. Does it make you better than some other accountants? I'll be honest, no. I have been a CPA for over 25 years, and I have met some great, smart, totally helpful accountants who aren't CPAs. And so, you don't have to be thrown off if somebody's not a CPA, but it is a good question to ask, because it means that they're keeping up to date, because they have to have continuing education, and they do have that level of experience and education that you just know. Like if they have CPA after their name, then you know that they have that. Now, CPAs is a little bit like an MBA, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean that you work in one general area. So for instance, I'm a CPA and I am a virtual CFO. So I work on the advisory side. You also have CPAs that focus more on the tax side. So a CPA is just a designation sort of a kind of accountant. So hope that helps. Ethics classes. Yes, we do have to take ethics classes. I have to take my 4 hours of ethics this month. So we continue to take continuing education and ethics. Okay, the last thing I want to talk to you about is CFO. Okay, CFO stands for Chief Financial Officer. So a Chief Financial Officer is a little bit different than just an accountant, because accounting generally is talking about what I call the rear view mirror. Okay, so we are looking at what happened. And it's really important because if you've seen me talk about forecasting, we're always talking about trying to get from where you are to where you want to go. So you as the business owner, you set the goal for where you want to go. But we can't get where we want to go if we don't know where we are. Well, that is what in the accounting world is termed compliance and historical. So we have to know where we are. So that's what the bookkeeper and the accountant are going to prepare. We have to have that starting point. Now, a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, can be different across companies. What is implied by a CFO at a $2 billion revenue company is really different than what might be implied at a smaller company. So when I think of CFO services and what I offer is more that strategy, okay? Somebody who's going to come alongside you and sit sort of on your side of the table with you as a business owner and talk to you about, cash projections. Do you have the cash that you need to get from, where you are to where you want to go? Have you planned that out? Have you mapped that out? What if revenue falls? Do we have enough cash? How are we planning our product mix? What should our profitability look like? And how can we move towards scaling your business if that's what you want to do? So that's the part that gets me all excited, right? So, and a CFO is oftentimes more, they're involved in more aspects of the business, helping the business owner in that advisory role. It's not just accounting, not just historical. So it's forward facing, front windshield, if you will, trying to help you go from where you are to where you're trying to go. So you may be like, wow, that's the part I really want, but oh my gosh, now I got to hire a bookkeeper, an accountant first before I could get to, and a controller is somewhere in the middle. A controller, normally they're the accounting part. So a controller typically is kind of the head accountant. So if you are big enough that you would have several different accountants, then usually that would be a controller. A controller is typically, not typically, but hopefully a CPA, and is over the accountants and the bookkeepers. So if you're a smaller company and you're like, yeah, but I don't know what I need and where I want to go, I would encourage you, first of all, you have to have bookkeeping. You need bookkeeping. So if you are not doing bookkeeping, you need to start doing bookkeeping, whether that's you yourself doing bookkeeping, tracking, and go back and look. I just did a video not very long ago on easy bookkeeping methodology to just get you started. It's single entry. It kind of makes me like, as a CPA, I don't really like that because it's definitely not where we go when we're getting bigger. But getting started is so important. I will also say that we can't do everything ourselves. CEO of your company can be chief everything officer where you are overwhelmed by things. Source. So figuring out if bookkeeping is not going to be your thing, but understand how important it is for your business, it may very well be a good thing for you to outsource. So definitely you need to have your bookkeeping and produce monthly financial statements. Once you are able to afford advisory services, I strongly encourage you to do that, because someone in an advisory role is going to help you not just summarize what happened, but help you analyze what strategies you may need to create and implement in order to get from where you are to where you want to go. And the reason that I do it as a virtual CFO is because I realize that you, as a small business owner, don't need a full-time CFO there with you 40 hours a week. So this allows me to have several different clients and help several different clients so that you can afford that level of CPA and experience and expertise and yet not have to pay for full time. Because I really truly believe what brought me to work with small business owners is I truly believe that every business needs and deserves financial expertise. You do not need to feel overwhelmed. And then the last thing that I would say is the tax person. So a lot of times when people say, I have an accountant, then I have to ask more questions, right? Because usually what people mean is they have someone that's filing their taxes. And so I just want to say tax people are so important. I do not do taxes. I understand it from a financial standpoint. But so if you're interviewing a tax person, you want to make sure that they are helping you not just prepare your tax return, but as a business owner, make good tax planning strategies. If there are 3 options, A, B, or C, that your company could do, we want to consider the tax effects on that, the impact that it will have on your business, right? So you can see that a good tax advisor is important. However, profitability and scaling and cash management and all of those things, that's not what the tax advisor is focused on. They're not. They're focused on your tax liability, on making sure that they've got you following the rules correctly, filing on time, and all that stuff. But it's a completely different, in my mind, overall goal and focus. So while I don't do tax, I am definitely on the advisory side, and I really encourage you to see that difference. It's kind of like the sommelier has sort of said, like, I do wine. The tax advisor has really said, I do taxes. And so somebody that would call themselves as CFO or advisory, you'll hear us say, like I would say, advisory services, strategic services. I call myself a small business strategist. Those are all sort of words that will tell you that that's the kind of person that's going to help you from where you are to where you want to go. And as a small business person, you probably don't need that full time, but even meeting with an advisor, it's usually an ongoing relationship where you talk to them at least monthly to go over your financial statements, figure out where you are in relation to what your goal was and what tweaks need to be made and how you would change your goals going forward to get to your next goal. So hopefully you achieve your goal and then you go on to the next goal. And then also they generally have just more experience and more levels of business. So I hope that this helped you guys today. I am here. I'm in the United States. I'm actually in Dallas, but I work with people all over. So I love meeting you guys. You can find out more about me at victoryadvisory.com or email me at Christy@victoryadvisory.com. And we would love to talk with you. I do offer full service bookkeeping and accounting. I personally am very excited about advisory because I think that's critical. You can't really get where you're trying to go without having a plan. Otherwise, it's just a shot in the dark. And we all know that if I got in my car and just drove, I would not end up where I wanted to go. So I don't want that for your business either. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you have left this video understanding so much better the difference between a bookkeeper, accountant, CFO, and CPA. And please do share this with your small business friends because we want everyone to feel confident and competent in running their business and understanding the money side of their business. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time.